The purpose of this podcast is to have enlightening conversations with humans who are making impact. I love hearing not only about the business success that accompanies the impact, but also the personal reflections and lessons learned along the way. And even more telling, the soul-inspired drive that fuels the choice to make impact to begin with. Hi, I'm Tricia Miltimore, speaker, trainer, and ambassador for social enterprise, and this is Passion for Impact. Greg Bickert, founder and CEO of Inspire Property Management, is one of those humans who lives and leads as a value-centered impact leader. He began work in strata management in 2005, started out as an unlicensed assistant, worked his way up to managing broker, the highest non-owner position in the company. He changed companies due to a toxic workplace, moved to another company which appeared to be on the same path as the last. So he started Inspire Property Management. The lessons learned from working in several companies, mostly what not to do, helped him to create the work environment that was recently selected as a finalist for the Kelowna Chamber's Inclusive Workplace Award. In this open conversation, Greg shares from his heart about how past trauma fuels his leadership. So many tips for how to care in real time. You ready? Let's do it.
This is the Passion for Impact podcast with speaker, trainer, and socially conscious advocate Tricia Miltimore.
Thank you for joining in. This is Passion for Impact, where we have one clear goal: to educate, empower, and elevate social consciousness in people, business, and teams. Passion for Impact is brought to you by Rock Your Leadership, a customized module-based leadership training program for social enterprise companies and leaders. We train impact leaders on how to grow success, drive change, and not burn out. Visit passionigniter.ca/rock your leadership for more details. Greg Bickert, founder and CEO of Inspire Strata Management, is humble. I asked for a short bio, and this is what he gave me. You're going to love this. Okay, ready? Early work life, certified babysitter, volunteer, cotton candy spinner, and snow cone alchemist. That's amazing. Mid-work life, office supply and printer salesman, respite caregiver, professional beer stacker, volunteer, all at the same time. And then a career change to strata manager, volunteer, business owner, volunteer, and volunteer. But there is so much more to the story. And I invited Greg on the podcast because he exemplifies care in leadership, which is close to my heart. You've heard me talk about that a lot. And he's also an ambassador for women in the workplace in so many wonderful ways. So let's dive into his story and soak in the lessons learned along the way. Greg, thank you for being on Passion for Impact. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation, as I always am, because I've been, following you on LinkedIn. And of course, from many, many, many years ago, it feels like a lifetime ago, we were connected through some properties and strata management, whatnot. But now here you are with this company that I just love the name, Inspire. It's Inspire Property Management. That's right?
That's right.
Yeah. But Inspire. And one of your goals from your website is that you want Inspire to have the best client and staff retention in the industry. And what I love about everything that you do is it's so intentional. So let's give everyone some context about, not only your volunteer and your beer stacking, which is amazing. Here's those skills. I'm sure they come in handy. But yeah, how did you get to this place, owning your own company, and where does your passion for impact come from? I know those are kind of big general questions, but let's kind of start with your story generally, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, so my early career helped to bring me into strata management. I used to babysit for the owner of the company that I ended up working for many years later. He adopted two children from Haiti, and I babysat them and their daughter. And later on, after I, got into the real working world, working at Office Depot and stacking beer at the liquor store and doing all the things you need to do to make money, he eventually approached me while on a shift at Office Depot and and asked me if I might join his company. Funnily enough, he just kind of said, well, what are you making here anyway? And I told him it was something, I don't know, give or take a couple of bucks from minimum wage kind of thing. And he's like, oh, that's just silly. I can pay you at least, $2 or $3 more than that. So it was kind of at first a money decision here, because it was just, I can stop working 3 jobs and maybe boil it down to just 1 or 2 here. But, it's just those connections you make. It's interesting how they eventually turn into something later on.
Mm-hmm. When kind of you leapfrog from one thing to another. So you ended up working at that company and you were there quite a while. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I started in 2005, which was just before licensing was coming into effect. It's actually why the owner had asked me to come join. He knew that there was going to be a lot of need for new people coming in. And there was very limited time really to get the people that have been working in strata management licensed before the new requirements to take the course came in. So he brought me in as an assistant, just generally to help around in the company. And I worked there until 2014. And, I learned a lot there, actually. A lot of what I've brought into my own company now, I've learned from there, good and bad. But, mostly, really, I started at the bottom and worked my way to the top. So one of I'd say the overall benefits here to me was that I learned sort of almost every job. So, starting my own business became a lot easier for me, knowing whether it's the person that's filing or the accounting person or the reception. I worked pretty much every job through my career at that one job.
And so you did all that. You got to the highest level, isn't that right? But besides being the person in charge, is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know the industry that well, but you got to that high level before you decided to open up your own business. Is that right?
Yeah. So through my career there, I did go get the licensing education. So I got my strata management license, since that was the main area of business for that company, and got my rental, and then got my managing broker's license. So the managing broker's license is, under our license, we're in charge of everything that happens within the brokerage. But under a business structure, you're not necessarily in charge of making, financial decisions, hiring, firing decisions, even though you're saddled with it as the licensed person in charge. And that's ultimately why I had to leave. It was a very awkward position to be in at that time. The owner, I'll just say he was a lovely guy to work with, but the company outgrew his capacity. And so it just became very difficult to work there. And, it was a lot of risk for me being responsible for all the activities and yet not being able to say, let someone go that's clearly creating a problem, or hire somebody when we're clearly short-staffed. It just put me at risk. So I really had to leave, mostly because of that.
And was being an entrepreneur always something in your path you thought you wanted to do?
It's funny, back to how life just sort of works out on its own sometimes. Mm-hmm. It was and it wasn't. I dreamed about it, I guess. I talked about it a lot. I should just start my own. I could do this, I think a lot of people do that. But, you get your back against a wall sometimes, and you just have to make a decision. And sometimes that's what you need. So in this case, I probably wouldn't have started my own. I probably would have just kept working there, kept slogging away at it. But, it was just such a I guess, precarious position that I had to make a leap. And I will say, I didn't jump right into starting my own company either. I was still too scared of, I guess, my own ability, or I don't know, I just thought, let's try another company first. Fortunately for me, I guess that other company didn't work out either. The owner of that other company, well, let's just say didn't exactly run things ethically. And so we had differences of opinion. And so it was pretty short-lived. And at that point, it was like, this is just silly. I just need to start my own company. This can be done so much better than the way some of these guys are running their companies.
So that moment when you thought, okay, that's it, I'm going to start my own company, where were you contextually in your life? Did you have children? Were you, at what point? Just so people have some kind of context. Because I know there's people right now listening to your story and they can see themselves in your story and they're at this place of choice. And it's always the hardest place, the most exciting place too, where they have to either take a divergent path, right? Or not. So where were you in your life at that time?
Totally. Actually, it was a scary time for me. Very financially scary, I guess. My wife and I had, my wife had just announced her pregnancy with our, we only have one child. So it was with our first child there then. So just a few months earlier, I'd announced that to the staff. So they all knew at the company I was with. The boss, actually, he had let me go. It wasn't my choice. Although we both knew it was over when we had that meeting. He was just the one that really said the words. So it was a time where I'm about to prepare for this big life change at home. And yeah, I mean, the first thought is like, okay, am I starting a company? Am I working for another company? And just having to be stuck now because I'm about to have a kid. And, you don't really want to be starting a company with a brand new child. But, ultimately it was just a lot of quick thought, but took a week and it was like, no, I have to do this. This is what I've wanted to do for years. I've been talking about it for years. I just need to do it. So glad I did. It was hard, but very, very glad I did it.
So you're in that moment where you decide this is what you're going to do. Did you come up with the word inspire as your company name right away, or did that happen a little bit later?
No, I was just workshopping and I was just trying to find the name that would inspire, funnily enough. And, I was looking at things, mostly adjectives that were used to describe me and how I work. So some of the early names were things like engage strata management, because I kept being told that I'm probably the most engaged strata manager they've ever met, or I don't know, integrity was another one that I threw out there. I get described as having high integrity, ethical strata management. Nothing struck a chord. They describe sort of how I am, but they didn't really speak to me until finally just came to me. One of those things. Don't know how it happens. Just went inspire strata management or inspire property management. You said that in the intro and now I'm saying it.
I know.
Inspire
I'm sorry. I realized. Whoops.
No, it's great. No, I chose, actually that was the first version. It was going to be inspire strata management. So it's perfect. I went with property management because I knew we'd probably have to offer rental property management as well. So it should be more general. But yeah, inspire was the word that really stuck out in the end, that it just really spoke to me.
Now, this is where the story I find gets really interesting from the passion for impact perspective, is that you didn't just start a company, like I'm going to start a company. I got a kid on the way. I need to make some money. This is something I've always wanted to do. You went farther than that. You created a company that makes impact. And so what I want to know is, how did you make that choice? Where did that fuel come from? And how does it look today in terms of how, certainly your company has grown. You're nominated for an award just recently that I got to be there to see all of that. It's just amazing. But before we get into all that, what fueled you to have a company with impact, and how do you see that impact for your company?
So, well, like most people, it's partially a reaction to, the things that you've seen done poorly at other companies you've worked for. So a lot of it was just, I can do differently. I've seen sexual harassment happening at businesses I've worked for, before even strata management. And just to be in that position as a third party, seeing it and not knowing what to do, it sticks with you. You feel bad for the people and you just don't know what to do. Who do you complain to when it's the boss that's I think in their mind, being innocent about it, they're just pursuing somebody, but they're in a position of power and maybe they don't notice that it's unwanted. It's a very difficult thing. So I knew it was going to be very important to me to have very, I guess, strong policies about that, or just to be very aware of what's going on in the company if people are in a management position and they're using that power to influence others, whether it is, true sexual harassment or just, being rude or berating people at another business. There was one person, because he's one of the highest paid people in the company. He wasn't the owner or anything, but he brought in a lot of the company's income. He would yell at staff to the point where one person, quit on the spot. Went home crying, quit on the spot, and the boss of the company didn't let this guy go. And I was seething at that point. Like, how can you not let somebody go that is going to harass somebody to the point where they're crying at work and they have to quit their job? And I will say this person was also good at their job that quit. So there's really no reason for this. They just made a mistake, and this person, because they have that power, felt that they could. And obviously they could act that way without impunity here. It is brutal. I just never want to see that sort of thing happening. It's not good for the company anyway. In the long run, all that does is just creates a toxic workplace. And actually, well, it's not really funny, but interestingly, that same boss had admitted later on, when we were finally letting somebody go for some other improper conduct, he admitted to me that he never actually fired anyone before. And I didn't have the vocabulary to describe it at the time, but I now know it's called mobbing. So what he had practiced all along was just when he didn't like somebody, he wanted them to quit, he would just, pass rumors around, or he would, just act very, opposed to them. He would be very rude to them, and just otherwise try and encourage them to quit on their own because they don't like to work there anymore. And then he wouldn't have to fire them. Just terrible.
And with your company, you want to do things much different. I asked, in the pre-form here, what is your passion for impact? And you said you can be kind, inclusive, and ethical while running a successful business. It's just business is no way to justify poor behavior. So it seems like that motivates a lot of what you do.
It really does. Ethics is an easy one. To me, ethics has a lot to do with just being truthful. You can be truthful without hurting yourself. There is such a thing as being too honest, sharing too much, but there's no reason that you should lie. There's no reason you should steal, cheat, whatever, it's just business. That's just nonsense. To me, a business is an extension of the leadership. So it is a part of me. If I treat it like a limb or something like that, I would never, poison it like that. A business is sort of the same thing. It is like a person. It's out there in the world. It's dealing with the community. You have to, have your business operate the way you would want yourself to be operating in your community here.
Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing to hear from a business owner that speaks that way, because not everyone does. In my world, I'm surrounded by amazing leaders and CEOs and whatnot, but I also have clients where I know that's not the case everywhere. And you have, how many employees do you have right now?
So we've got 9 now.
Wow. And one of the things that you like to do from our previous conversations is support women in the workplace. So how do you do that through your company? How does that show up?
Yes, mostly just coming about it honestly here. The staff I've hired have just been the best hires. It wasn't really intentionally that I was, writing a policy that I need to be inclusive to women. I already knew in general. I just didn't want to be a discriminatory business. Again, that's back to ethics. You can be very inclusive just by acting ethically. So you hire the right people. But I think as I reflect back on it, I think a lot of the reasons I've ended up trying to support and I guess change our policies to, for accommodating work from home has made single moms or just mothers in general, parents in general, really, to be able to have that home life and that work life. They can, do a little bit of work, put the kids to bed, do some more work, or, they can go to soccer practice and all those sorts of things. Over time, our policies have just sort of allowed for that. And yeah, as I reflect back on it, I think part of the reason I sort of have pushed really far into supporting women that way is because of my childhood. I am a survivor of child abuse, physical child abuse. I'm fortunate to be someone who didn't suffer as bad as many others, but it did stick with me as it does with everybody. And I feel like when I have a mom that wants to be home with their kids, but they still want to have a job, I just want to make that happen, and it's easy if I can let them work from home instead of making them sit at a desk. Like, why wouldn't I do it? Of course you can work from home if that's what's going to work, and you can support your child and they can feel safe at home. They can be loved at home. I want to be somebody that makes that happen.
That is very powerful. And I can feel it coming right from your heart. Since you have had your own child, has that also fueled your, motivation and your own heart into all of the elements of working with your team?
It's helped my home life for sure. Let's just backtrack a little bit here to the beginning of the pandemic. At that time, our sort of management staff, the property managers, they generally would work from home most of the time. We had a phone system and, email and general things that made it possible to work from home for their type of job. But it was difficult for, accounts payable specifically, or the bookkeeping team to work from home, because we're a very paper-centric business. The whole industry is very paper-centric. So the pandemic really forced me to accelerate how we were moving towards electronic communications and, tracking bills, whatever we do to try and make sure everything's done electronically, just so people could continue to work. We needed to get the work done. So, that was a big change. And even for myself, I was in the office all the time. And now we've kind of got these systems in place. I'm usually in the office 2 days a week. The rest of the time I'm working from home, and it's mostly just really great. If my daughter can come home from school, she'll come in and she gives me a great big hug and starts to tell me about her day. That's just amazing. I feel like I missed out so much of that time when I was working in the office, and I couldn't just be at home and just be part of the home life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always perfect though either. It's that same very thing, when I'm busy, it's like, yeah, I love the hug and everything, but I do need to get to work, and, I have to let her down because she wants to, play a board game or something. Oh man, that just hurts the heart.
Doesn't it?
Saying no to your kid.
It does.
Yeah.
But being there for those other moments is such a beautiful thing. And I love that you're able to support others to do that as well. And so when you look back on starting your company and all the growth that it's gone through this short amount of time, what advice would you give yourself if you could go back to the beginning from your perspective now? Like a couple of pieces of advice.
Yeah, a couple pieces of advice. Yeah. Well, probably part of it is, it's maybe cliche, but go for your dreams. You don't be afraid to step out on a limb and take a chance. I will say that's also counteracted with, I wouldn't be the person today that I am if I didn't experience a lot of the things that, many times made me want to quit. So there is some benefit from that. So I guess the other piece of advice is just, when you're in those hard times, try and think about the lesson that you're learning here, and think about the long term, whether it's, I could do this better, or if it's just, This is temporary and you're going to find a new job, whatever. There's always some sort of lesson to learn there.
Right? Life has a good way of doing that, doesn't it?
It really does. But again, it's sort of my mantra here. It's almost like you can just be ethical in everything you do here. There's no reason. Again, you need to. Well, okay, I'll just give you a for instance on how management companies work here a little bit. So the standard practice in our industry is with regards to portfolios, managers are if they quit, they have a non-compete clause. They're not allowed to go after any of their past clients, any of the clients that the company managed, even if they didn't manage them directly, and so on. It's very, very protective, because I think part of it is because a lot of the companies have just sort of attacked each other and, just stolen business from each other. But I've come about it totally differently. I just realized that, if if a manager leaves, we probably can't service that client very well anymore, if at all, because now we're short staffed. So why are we being so protective of keeping that portfolio? If that client would be better served to just move along with that person, then they probably should. And frankly, if a client is only staying because they're forced to stay, that's not beneficial for either of us. They're not happy because they don't want to be here, but they have to be. And I'm not happy because I'm overworked and having to find somebody to replace this other person. So personally, I've just, let's just get rid of that. If the manager wants to be able to bring with them their own clients to their new company, then so be it. They have that ability. And I don't need to be so protective of everything I do to keep every client here. And as I say to the clients all the time, I don't need to, because you're going to want to stay because of the services we're providing and how we treat our staff. And same with our staff. Our staff are going to stay because they want to be here, not because they have to be.
That goes right back to your overall goal that Inspire will have the best client and staff retention in the industry. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk more about the staff retention side of things. I know there's people listening who have companies of their own, and they're, one of the hardest parts of being in business is the people side of things. So what systems or ideologies, or I don't know, what have you put in place that helps you to retain your staff in a way that they're not only doing the job great, but they're totally fulfilled in the work environment as well?
I mean, really, there's two words for it. It's patience is a big one. So when it's training people, or when people have to be accommodated, or whatever it is, just constant patience. There's no reason to, I guess, expect people to learn new concepts right away, and so on. I'm told all the time that I'm a very patient person. I have a rule that I tell people when I first hire them, that I'm probably going to tell you the same thing 3 times before it sticks. So don't worry about it. Like, just keep asking me. I'm just going to repeat myself 3 times, maybe more, but probably on average, when you're learning so much all at the start here, I expect you're not going to just learn everything just magically. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And yeah, I think the other is really accommodation. It's again, if people want to work from home and there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to work from home, then they should. Another little side story related to that, why I think that's important. At one company, there was a lady that had, she was exceptional. I tell you, she's one of the best people I've worked with. She worked in this position, and I've seen it take 2 people to do the amount of work that she was doing in a day. Just incredible. And the boss, she approached the boss one day because her daughter had cancer, and she wanted to be able to take her daughter to to her treatments in the morning, and she wanted to start work at, I think, 9:30 instead of 8:30 in the morning each day. The boss said no.
Wow.
Just incredible to me. Just the smallest of accommodation he could have made. And of course she quit. She should have. Like, that's just clearly not going to work out if your boss can't even accommodate an hour shift in your work. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to say no to some of these things that you might be afraid to say no. Well, you might be afraid to allow it, let's say, because you lose some of that direct supervision as a boss. But if you've got trust in your employees and you can see that the work is being done, then you should accommodate and allow this. And now your people will be so much happier to work for you because they can live that happy life with the right work-life balance that works for them and still get the work done. It's mutually beneficial.
Mm-hmm. What other accommodations have you been asked or taken part of that you think other people in your position should know about, that just makes maybe it's the smallest accommodation that seems to have a really big impact? Anything that comes to mind?
It's I guess hard to say just because we have a small company. So I'll just speak very, very broadly here on this one subject. But with mental health, it's a tricky thing. I'm glad that my staff, as far as I know, they all feel comfortable talking to me. So I've been approached more than once about somebody suffering from mental health issues, and I think it's good that they do that. They often are coming to me because they can see their work is falling behind, or they can see clients are complaining. So they already know that I'm probably going to know something's up. But if I know that there's something going on, then at least I can support them and I can do something about it. Whether it's decreasing their work or just helping them out with that issue, or letting them talk to me about what's causing that pain or that struggle. I think that one's also hard to get, though. If you haven't created an environment where people feel comfortable talking to you. So I guess this really comes down to trying to work really hard at making yourself available and not being judgmental when people do say things to you that maybe you don't agree with. Try and listen and try not to judge them.
Mm-hmm. Creating that culture of care and trust is a gift for those who get to experience it and be part of it. I'm sure all your staff feel that way. And I think it's amazing that you're intentional and focused on that. It probably is an extension of just who you are, right? And I'm assuming as you go through and you continue to level up all your leadership skills, that you're seeing how you can adjust and tweak and whatnot. But I'm assuming it's coming out from just who you are in your heart. If you were to offer some advice to someone else who has a team in how to develop trust over time, does anything stand out for you that you think is a good tool or tools to achieve that?
It's again back to just being non-judgmental. I think one of my favorite authors is Adam Grant. He speaks a lot about. I think he's a organizational psychologist. It's technically his term, and I don't remember the exact quote, but he pointed out in one of his books that people with high IQ, that they're most susceptible to making quick judgments. They're more likely to actually have, I guess some of these bad habits, really. But so basically, what he was pointing out was that because they're so smart, they often make connections and they make them very fast. And because they're so used to doing that, they will often be very judgmental. And so there's a bit of training people out of that. I'm going to say I'm one of those people that back in the day, I was very easy to quick judge, so it is a learned thing. Mm-hmm. I think for anyone, I think most leaders, they're pretty smart people. It's just going back and actually Adam Grant, speaking of him, he's got a great book, Think Again. There's a lot of wisdom in there about just, listening. Actually, I did pull up a quote from him here. He says, "Arrogance leaves us blind to our weakness. Humility is a reflective lens. It helps us see them clearly. Confident humility is a corrective lens. It enables us to overcome those weaknesses. What he's talking about there is just that, you can realize that you might be wrong. So listen to people with an awareness that you might have formed an opinion incorrectly before, but you can still be, confident when you do have the answer and help people through things. So it's a tricky balance, but if you do that, then people will, they will approach you. They'll be comfortable listening to you or talking to you because they know you're going to listen.
Mm-hmm. And genuinely care.
I think that's so important. And I've encountered actually a few people that maybe don't care as much as they seem. It can be learned as well, like many things. You have to. Yeah. Well, okay. Again, that's a me thing here. Because of I guess again just sort of a bit of my childhood trauma there. Mm-hmm. For a very long time in my life, I was very detached, very, outwardly happy, very outwardly, I guess, accessible, but really inside, that's not how I felt at all. I was very shut off and just going through the motions, and it was, for me at least, one of those things that, just keep practicing until it became something real. It's not that I was pretending to care, but it certainly felt like I was pretending to care sometimes about things that I should care about. So it's not always going to be, do you actually care? It is going to be, at least, do you care enough to make people feel that you care? And, the true caring, it will come.
I think that's a really important point. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
You appreciate your people, which is also an extension of care. How do you show your appreciation? Is there any, kind of things you do? To me, appreciation is something that's done every day. It's a little bit different than recognition, which is a bit more of a system or, stuff that's put into place in an organization. But caring is done every day. Appreciation is done every day. What do you do to show appreciation for your people?
Have you seen Ted Lasso?
I have not.
You have not. Oh, this anyone that's seen it, I won't go into the whole thing, but he basically he's a coach, and he constantly tells people, "I appreciate you." I love that. I've been doing that for a long time, since before watching that show, but maybe not exactly those words. I'd say it in different ways. Just saying thank you. But it's so great. This guy, he's so nice. Somebody might say something that he disagrees with, and you just end it with, but I appreciate you. It's great. It's important, though. I think that's what it is. It's thanking people. You can't underestimate the value of constantly thanking people, even for the little things. Somebody's signing out for the day. Okay, great. Thanks for your hard work today. I appreciate it. You got to do that constantly. It's not a given that they know you appreciate that they were working for you, or working with you, for that matter. People need to hear it. If they don't hear it, they may not feel it. And I'll just share another little anecdote. At one company I was working for, I'm a very nerdy tech guy, and so we were having a problem where we had grown to the size where the server that we were all accessing would no longer work to connect. It had a maximum of 10 simultaneous connections, so we need to upgrade the server. I knew enough to upgrade it to a Linux server, and so I ended up sort of scheduling it that I'd start right after everybody finished work at 5:00, and then it was going to be up and running by the next day. It took literally the whole night. I think I went to bed probably 6 or 7 in the morning.
Ooh, an all-nighter.
The next day. It was an all-nighter. Yeah, it didn't go as smooth as I thought it would, but so I get that all done, and of course it's all testing, it's all working. So I finally go home, crash, go to bed, and the boss the next day, it's sort of in the evening. He knew I was taking the day off, so he just called me up a little later in the day. Hey, are you at home? I'm like, yep, I'm at home. He's like, okay, great. I'm going to see you in 5 minutes. And he, comes up to the door, knocks on the door, and he just says, I just wanted to say thank you very much. Like that was, that was a big deal. You didn't have to do that. He wasn't paying me extra to do it. I just saw a need and wanted to get this done. He gave me $100 to the keg and a little thank you note, and just, I just want to say thanks. I share that because obviously it stuck with me, but when people do step in and when people, give themselves, even when they don't need to, I think you also need to go out of your way to make sure they know specifically that you really appreciate that. They didn't have to do it. It will stick with those people later on. They'll feel that you do care if you go out of your way to let them know.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, if you don't hear it, you can't feel it. That's such an important statement right there. It's a big one.
It's so important. Unfortunately, I had one boss that he used to think that, what he said to me once is why should I thank them? I gave them a job. They should be thankful. I'm just like, oh man, you don't get it at all.
No, he definitely doesn't, right? What is next for Inspire Property Management?
Yeah, well, we just keep growing. It's a busy time for me. It constantly is. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, really. Which is growing into new markets, taking on clients in other areas, and I guess bringing about our way of doing things to even more people. I've got actually just 10 minutes before we started this call, I had a strata up in Terrace say that they've decided to hire us. So that'll be our first in Terrace.
Nice. Congrats.
It happens. Yeah, thanks. For me personally, I'd say it's not directly Inspire, but I plan to just keep advocating for change in our industry. I'd like to see, more people coming into the industry, more supports happening for the managers. It is a difficult industry for strata managers. There's a lot of people that are, they're rude. They're, there's a lot of racism. There's a lot of, gender bias and things that make it very difficult for people to either enter or stay in the industry. It's not necessarily the companies themselves that this is coming from. It's the clients. We do need to see a lot of education going out there to the general public. We need to treat people better, but also we need businesses to support those staff. When a client is clearly, has a thing against women and, they literally are saying things like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a woman. Well, let's just let the client go. It's just money, there's enough clients out there. Why are we sticking with these, caustic people when there's plenty of people that can work with us well and we can both be happy?
Yeah. Wow. So you're a disruptor in the industry in many ways, would you say?
I would say so. A lot of our things, our pay structure and things like that. I've seen other businesses now take it up. So it is interesting to see how people are starting to model after our system. It's good. I like it.
Nice. That's very inspiring.
Yeah. Well, steal away, I say. You'll never do exactly what we do, but go ahead and try.
Right? It won't be exactly the same, a little bit different. What I also like is that you're on boards, right? So you're not just within the confines of your business and the reach you have there, but you're on the boards, having a voice there as well, which I think is inspirational, that people can look at that as a model if they want to be more of a disruptor in their own industry. Has that been an avenue for you to have expand your reach and have a bigger voice?
It's helped me have a bigger voice. I don't think it directly impacts my business, but it is definitely personally gratifying. I enjoy education. I enjoy just helping people, and education is part of that. So, joining the Professional Association of Managing Agents, PAMA, on their board and on the education committees, I've been able to do, a lot of good work, bringing education to other parts of the province. We used to only really provide education in the Lower Mainland. We started a committee up in Kelowna and started to bring education here locally. Eventually we went electronic. So now it's available province-wide. It's an industry that's supposed to serve the whole of the province. But in the past, it was like the only way you could get access to education was to go down to Vancouver. It's just outrageous the way it used to be, really. And now it's so accessible that even the people down in Vancouver we just had to cancel an in-person seminar because not enough people wanted to attend in person. They all are just signing up online.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you were recently selected as a finalist for the Kelowna Chamber's Inclusive Workplace Award, which is just so fitting. How did that feel? And it must have been a very sweet moment to get that recognition.
It was very cool. I'd say at first I thought that was a great fit. But then doing the interview, I realized, holy smokes, I actually have a lot more to do here. We are very inclusive. It's inclusive to me is partially just not being discriminatory. That's the basics of it, right? So again, back to things like the work from home has made us very accessible to women, and lots of little things. Just people that have different names that we're not really used to. We have a lady that has an accent in her name, and Elise, she has an accent aigu. And when she started at our company, she just sort of casually mentioned that, previous, when we set up her email, I don't need to bother with the accent. All of her other employers didn't bother to do it because I guess it's too hard to do. And I'm just thinking, that's nonsense. That's your name. Like, of course your name is going to be spelt exactly the way it's supposed to. So just, lots of little anecdotes like that where we're just trying to be actually properly inclusive. But like I say, during the interview process, we were still selected as one of the top 3 finalists. But the types of questions they were asking made me realize, things like, we don't really have an Indigenous, I'm calling it like a reconciliation policy, something to make sure that we're specifically going out there and trying to find Indigenous workers. They're not applying. So why aren't they applying? Right. Finding more, I just actually made this connection. So I'm trying to connect with, for hiring diverse ability people. Could be a reception position or whatever, that person that can come in that maybe they can't do a strata manager job. Maybe they can, but I think you've got people that are maybe not considered usually, or they're not going through the regular channels. So it's just going out there and trying to find ways to hire them. So we've got some changes coming that I think maybe makes me feel a little more confident the next time around that maybe we do deserve it even after the interview. But before the interview, it was like, yeah, this was good. After the interview, I'm like, okay, I think we've got some room to go. And I was happy that TKI Construction won. It seemed more fitting after going through the process.
Well, I think the recognition, even as a finalist, just shows that your intentionality, and isn't that what is so important, is there, and you're taking action from what you learn continuously. You're tweaking, you're open to new ideas, into more inclusive policies. So I think the recognition is so fitting for your intentionality and the impact you're making with your own team and within the industry as well, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got the Ethics in Business award the year before. Oh. That was a lot clearer, in my mind anyway. It was like, oh, that is us. Like, absolutely, no problem. But still, it's that was our first nomination to a Kelowna Chamber Award. I had no idea what to expect through the whole process, and I was trying not to get too excited to the point where I just, like, during the announcement for the awards, the gala, it was hosted online that year because of COVID. I went out for a drive to run some errands and just played it on my car radio there. And then they announce that we're the winners. Oh man, I had to pull over. I was just crying. It was such a big moment. It was like, oh, especially after that year, it was a hard fought year for all the adjustments we had to make with COVID and, losing some staff, in the process and having to hire more. And then, to get that recognition, it was a big deal.
Yeah, that really is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It feels so good to be recognized after so much hard work, right? And bringing your team along for that ride as well. Well, this has been fantastic. I feel like I'm just really grateful that you're so open to sharing and helping us to understand where you're coming from, the lessons that you've learned from all of your life experiences. And I just know that people listening will be able to extrapolate tidbits that's going to help them to be a better leader, to be a more inclusive workplace, to support those in their team. So so much gratitude. Before we kind of sign off, though, I do love to ask this question at the end, is what is the best wisdom that you have ever received?
Yeah. Okay. So my dad used to tell me this all the time. He says, when the first time you think you want to quit, that should be the last time you think that. So either quit or change something. I think he's mostly right. I'd say I'm much more patient than him. So I'll give it a second try or try and figure it out, I'd say. But still, I think it is generally wise wisdom. You should be changing something at least. If you think it's time to quit, talk to your boss about it. What's going on? Why are you feeling upset? And well, if the boss isn't going to be accommodating, then maybe it is time to move on. But I think most bosses are caring people. They do want to accommodate, and they just have a hard time connecting. So just, air it out with them. And I think that's important. And maybe things might have worked out a little bit differently for me if I'd been a little more open with my boss in some cases. Maybe not, considering some of the issues that they were having. But it goes for me too, when it's time to fire somebody, it's sort of the same thing. If I've been thinking about it, I should change something about it. I should talk to them to train, or they need to go if it's clearly over.
Mm-hmm. Good advice. Wonderful wisdom. Thank you again for sharing your time. And you know what? We need to let people know how to get a hold of you if they want to chat more or to look up your website as well. What is your website for Inspire Property Management? Yeah,
so it's just inspirepm.com, or in most towns where we operate, you can just check it out. Try, KelownaPM.com or terracepm.com. If we operate in your area, you'll see your city name, pm.com. We're working there.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for your time. It's such a pleasure. And I really appreciate having you on Passion for Impact.
It's been such a pleasure. And I look forward to listening to all your future podcasts. They've been pretty good so far. I've got about 10 or 12 under my belt now, and I like them. They're quite good.
Oh my gosh. Got a fan. That's so exciting. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Tricia.
Passion for Impact is sponsored by the Inspire Store. Need a gift that inspires? Inspire Store features exclusive ethically made goods and jewelry that embodies these 3 words. Yes, you can. Every purchase supports Food Banks Canada. Plus, you will receive Tricia Miltimore's popular personal development Shift Up e-course. Empowerment awaits you. Shop with impact at inspirestore.org.
Hey, if you love learning how to live and lead in a caring and fulfilling way, and you find this show inspiring, please share with your friends, rate and review this podcast. Passion for Impact is brought to you by Rock Your Leadership, a customized module-based leadership training program for social enterprise companies and leaders. We train impact leaders on how to grow success, drive change, and not burn out. Visit passionigniter.ca/Rock Your Leadership for more details. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Passion for Impact podcast. Visit passionigniter.ca/podcast to subscribe for episode notes, links, and special offers from show guests. Cast your vote. Make your impact. One so